Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, General, for being here, and congrats on your nomination. I want to focus on Special Operations Force structure and potential cuts that have now been widely reported, including an exclusive by Secretary of the Army with the Army Times. Special Operations Forces play a critical role in strategic competition, counterterrorism, and crisis response. So, and General, a true or false question here. So given these requirements, would you say that demand for Special Operations Forces from the combatant commands is growing? True or false, please?
You know, I don't know the answer to that specifically, but if you were to ask me how much it's since what we were doing 10 years ago, I think, again, what we're trying to do to look at this, and there's been no decisions made on this, on anything with the force structure, but we are doing things differently, and this really comes down to if we're operating in the same theater together and doing the same thing, and that's what we model. There are ways that we can do things, I think, one, more efficiently, and two, that would be better for the joint force. So we have a lot of capabilities that are out there already campaigning, and I think that we can do a lot of things together. Senator?
General, thank you. I appreciate your responses earlier to Senator Ernst and her kind introduction of you. The trend that I'm seeing, and this is anecdotal, and we probably would have the data that we're seeing an increased demand on this, but the joint concept for competing states that the joint force will conduct irregular warfare operations and activities proactively to subvert, create dilemmas for adversaries, and impose costs on adversaries' strategic interests. So when I think of irregular warfare, I think specifically about Army SOF, Green Berets, psychological operations, civil affairs. So another true or false, decreasing the overall, and this is again, decreasing overall capacity of Army Special Operations will decrease joint force ability to conduct the irregular warfare called for by the joint concept for competing. Would that be true or false?
I'm sorry, I'm not giving you a true or false, Senator, but I do think that, first of all, for SOF, it takes a long time to grow that capability. We have not, talked to anybody at SOCOM about specifically, for SOF, that specific capability, because I agree with you, we need that capability and out there. I think what we're talking about is how we support that capability that they have.
Thank you, General. And in keeping with that, it would seem that if we did decrease SOF in the joint force, that would decrease our ability to compete. So what does the operational and personnel tempo look like for Army Special Operations?
I would tell you that the op tempo is high really across the Army for what we're doing. So that's kind of what we measure it as far as we're looking at brigade combat teams. The same enablers that we're talking about are over there forward. For example, in Europe right now, it's all the Army enablers that are already over there that are supporting the SOF, so they wouldn't have to send additional folks over there. So that's what we try to do economies of scale. That's what you would expect us to do, because we also need an Army that can fight and win, and so I think that's all part of it.
General, continuing on with that, and I think I heard in that answer that you said it's high right now. So if demand is increasing in capacity, would decrease under the Army's reported plans, wouldn't that negatively impact both operational and personnel tempo?
Again, we would like to decrease tempo, purse tempo for everybody that's out there.
Right, but I understand if it actually is increasing, wouldn't decreasing under the Army's reported plans, wouldn't that negatively impact operation and personnel tempo? I mean, they seem like to be going in opposite directions.
If you're talking very basically like that, I would love to come over and have a detailed conversation with you on this, Senator, really for everybody about this.
Thank you, General. So I hope that we can make some reasonable decisions here. I look forward to that conversation that are in the best interests of the Army and the joint force as a whole. So I'm going to be following this closely, and I would love detailed updates as the department's planning progresses. But in my final time here, I want to ask on a different topic. When we spoke in my office, you mentioned the Army needs to improve its marketing strategy to address the recruiting crisis. You've mentioned recruiting a bit before, but what strategies and tools, a little different question, what strategies and tools would you suggest to improve Army recruiting?
I'll give you one quick example, Senator. I heard this when I was out with a recruiting company commander. I don't remember if it was Oklahoma or Texas was one of the others, and they said, hey, if your national message might be, buy a certain kind of vehicle, and, out here we buy Ford 150s, that's what it is. And so, how do we tailor local messages to local? That's one thing that I think that we have to look at, because we're different and we're trying to appeal to a very broad, we want to come from across society. And so I think that we have to look at it in detail from the local markets all the way up to the larger markets, and that's what we need to do.
Thank you, General. Chairman, the time expired.
Thank you, Senator Bud.